not, what it does, what it doesn't do. Those are all things that we're going to delve into today. But we're going to start with a short video that will go into it a little bit more.
Her research on the idea of mindset suggests that there is every reason to believe that we can be great, maybe even the best, at anything with dedicated practice. But in order to get there, we need what she calls a growth mindset, which simply means believing that our abilities, including intelligence, are largely a result of time, effort, and practice. A growth mindset stands in contrast to a fixed mindset, which limits us by making us believe that we are either born with certain abilities or not. For example, our fixed mindsets might tell us that we're an English person, but not a math person. Sound familiar? Having the right mindset is important because it affects behaviors which greatly influence whether or not you will succeed at something. For example, if you have growth mindset, you're more likely to embrace challenges, appreciate feedback, and when failures happen, you don't allow it to define you, and instead, you use it to help guide how you can improve. Those who have a fixed mindset, on the other hand, shy away from challenges, don't implement feedback, and in fact, often feel defensive about the criticism. And when failures happen, it's devastating and feels like an attack on one's worth. You can see that there is a self-fulfilling prophecy here. If you believe that your abilities can improve, you'll engage in behaviors which make it so. If you believe your abilities are more or less immutable, you don't try to improve, and so you don't. If you recognize yourself as having a fixed mindset about things, well, you know you can change that. Practice having a growth mindset, and the sky's the limit.
That was a nice short overview of what we're going to do today and what we're going to talk about. So Carol Dweck, very, very famous psychology professor at Stanford University, came up with research around what she found in our personalities. She found that through her studies that some of us have a fixed mindset and some of us have growth mindsets. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that plays out, but first, let's talk about her research. So she studied the reaction of not only adults but children in certain tests and studies. And so the first one I want to bring up is the one that she did with 4-year-olds. So the 4-year-olds were given the task of having puzzles. So they could pick an easy puzzle or a hard puzzle. And this is a quick and dirty way of knowing what kind of mindset you're working with. So as you can well imagine, the kids that had fixed mindsets wanted to work on the easy puzzles. And when I say easy, they had done them before. The growth mindset kids, not so much. They wanted to have the challenging puzzles. Matter of fact, they could not understand why some of the kids wanted to redo a puzzle they'd already done. So that was a very quick way of finding out who your fixed mindset kids were versus your growth mindset. So that was really a perfect example, and one that you might try at home, especially if you've got younger kids, just to not to consider your kids lab rats, but it's important that you as parents help us create a growth mindset or a better, stronger growth mindset, depending on where they are. And these are some of the little tests you can use to see where your child is and how much work you're going to have to do to help them become more growth mindset type of personalities and brains. She also quotes one 7th grader who captured the difference beautifully. She said, "I think intelligence is something you have to work for. It isn't something given to you. Most kids, if they're not sure of an answer, will not raise their hands," and we've seen that. But what I usually do is raise my hand, because if I'm wrong, my mistake will be corrected. Or I'll raise my hand and say, how can this be solved? I don't get this. Can you help me? And by doing that, I'm increasing my intelligence. So obviously, the teachers there have used growth mindset strategies to help her welcome the opportunity to learn around something that she may not be right, have a right answer on. So things got even more interesting when she brought people in to study how brains behaved in difficult situations. And what she found was that those with fixed mindsets were only interested in hearing feedback that reflected directly on their present ability. But they tuned out the information that could help them learn. And matter of fact, they didn't even want to know the right answer if they got it wrong. So, because what is happening with a fixed mindset brain is that it challenges themselves and their thought that they are smart. And that's really hard for them to accept. The growth mindset, on the other hand, were keenly attentive to information that could help them expand their existing knowledge and skills, regardless of whether they had gotten the answer right or wrong. In other words, their priority was learning and not success, and not only success. So these findings are especially important in education, as you can well imagine, because we are constantly in the question and answer stage, and we want kids to feel comfortable answering questions. But if we've not done a good job in growing their growth mindsets, then we get kids who are afraid to raise their hands. They're afraid to answer, to take the risk to answer. Now, the final test that I'll bring to your attention was one that she had with kids with math problems. She had some fairly hard, not super hard math problems that she brought to several children who were both fixed and growth mindset kids. So when they finished answering the questions, the researchers praised them, but one group they praised with, you got this many right, you must really be smart. And then the other group were praised differently. They were praised, you got this many right, you have really worked hard to get this many correct. So then they had the opportunity to have more challenging problems. And the fixed mindset kids were not open to having more challenging problems because they recognized that they might have trouble with them. Whereas the growth mindset kids welcomed those harder problems because they knew that they had an opportunity to learn something new. So one of the takeaways that Carol Dweck learned from her research, and she's written many books on it, is that by calling kids smart, it actually is not a healthy praise. By calling kids smart, it actually creates a fixed mindset. And that's what I'm here today to help you help your children, along with our teachers, in helping your kids, our kids, feel more comfortable around failure. So the most interesting part of this study was what happened next. So the last part of that activity, that study, was for the kids to write a letter about their experience. And they had to put in their letter what score they had gotten. So 40% of the fixed mindset kids lied about their score. And that's been proven more than once over the years. A fixed mindset, or calling kids smart and praising kids for just being smart, actually locks them into the thought that they must cheat and lie so that people won't find out that they're not possibly really smart. So there's some psychology going on there that now that we know about it, we need to work around and help them through. So that's why we're here today. There's also many ways that fixed mindset and growth mindset can impact relationships. we're not going to delve on that today, but if you want to know more about Carol Dweck's work on fixed mindset and growth mindset, she's easily Googled, and you can find out the article that I used on this one was called Brain Pickings, Fixed versus Growth, the two basic mindsets that shape our lives, how to fine-tune the internal monologue that scores every aspect of our lives, from leadership to love. So that's a book for grown-ups. And if you have an interest in knowing more about how to possibly develop your growth mindset more as you help develop your kids' mindsets, that would probably be a win-win. All right, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the fixed mindset, growth mindset definitions and how it impacts the brain with our next video.
Did you know that you can grow your brain? We go to school to learn, but we don't often talk about how we learn. We don't often think about what intelligence is or how it works. You might think a person is born smart, average, or dumb, either a math person or not, and stays that way for life. But new research shows the brain is more like a muscle. It changes and gets stronger when you use it. This is true even for adults. Inside the outside layer of the brain, called the cortex, are billions of tiny nerve cells called neurons. The nerve cells have branches connecting them to other cells in a complicated network. Communication between these brain cells is what allows us to think and solve problems. When you learn new things, these tiny connections in the brain actually multiply and get stronger. The more you challenge your mind to learn, the more your brain cells grow. Then, things that you once found very hard or even impossible to do, like speaking a foreign language or doing algebra, become easier. The result is a stronger, smarter brain. Scientists have recently shown that adults can grow the parts of their brains that control their abilities, like the ability to do math or even to juggle. When people work hard to learn and practice new ways of doing algebra or statistics, it can grow their brains, even if they haven't done well in math in the past. But it's not just about effort. You also need to learn skills that let you use your brain in a smarter way. If a weightlifter watched other people exercise all day long, he wouldn't get any stronger. You actually have to practice the right way to get better at something. In fact, scientists have found that the brain grows more when you learn something new and less when you practice things you already know. This means that it's not just how much time and effort you put into studying math, but whether, when you study, you learn something hard and new. To do that, you usually need to use the right strategies. People often learn those good strategies from others, like teachers or students who do well. Luckily, strategies are easy to learn if you get help. The adult brain is like a muscle, and we need to exercise it. The best way to grow your intelligence is to take on challenges and respond with good strategies and get help from others. Having a growth mindset helps you make better choices and achieve more success. With a growth mindset, you can choose to work smarter, not just harder.
So math for me has always been a struggle. When I came to college, I was really intimidated to take a math class. When I learned about the concept of growth mindset, I realized that although math might not be my strongest subject, I can get to where I need to go with growth mindset techniques. When you have a fixed mindset, you encounter a challenge. When you're not successful, you kind of just shut down and you decide, oh, it's not for me, I'm just gonna go elsewhere. But with the growth mindset, you realize that the challenge and the part where you struggle is where you're actually learning. That's where the learning is taking place. Having a growth mindset really helps in taking on new challenges and being able to learn a new material. So when I started here, I took Math 15 and I've worked my way all the way up to last semester I took honors stats, Math 120. For someone who encounters challenge and just says, I'm not a math person or I'm not an English person, I would say to them, at the end of that saying, I would include yet. So I'm not a math person yet, or I'm not an English person yet. Because with the growth mindset, it allows you to realize that you can really learn anything that you put your mind to, which is really exciting because then you realize there aren't as many limits as you think there are. There's just limits that you put on yourself.
To find out how you can implement growth mindset strategies, please visit growthmindset.fullcall.edu.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what we heard. We heard that the brain is a muscle and it needs exercise. And the way that you exercise it is by learning new things. All of this seems real basic, but we see it in the classroom, and hopefully now that we've been talking about it, and by the end of the podcast, you will have some new recognitions when you ask your, or when you watch your child operate, and through some of the things that they say and do, that you might understand that there might be some work needing to be done in the growth mindset area. A strategy that the college student gave us was that she wasn't good in math. Matter of fact, you've heard that now in both videos, that is something adults tend to say. High schoolers say it. The older students, adults, I'm not a math person. But what you heard her say is, I'm not a math person yet. And by adding that little word at the end of that sentence and having a growth mindset, she is now taking honors math stats. I mean, that's pretty impressive for somebody who used to call herself not a math person. And she also reminded us that it's the limitations that we put on ourselves that keep us back, not our brain. Our brain is ready to work. We just sometimes don't work it hard enough. So why are we focusing on failure so much? Well, one of the things that we've learned is that we protected our kids a lot over the last 10, 15 years. And many of our children, by being protected so much from failure, have fixed mindsets. They don't lose well. They don't take up challenges well. They don't want to work harder easily. All those are all signs of fixed mindsets, because well-meaning parents who love their children sometimes don't understand that by keeping failure from happening, it keeps their kids from growing in the growth mindset area, and from developing the coping skills necessary to overcome failure in the future when their bigger problems come up. So let's talk about 3 reasons why failure is good. Failure is a redirection. It shows you where you shouldn't be. When you get there, then you know to do something else. Failure is an opportunity. It's a chance to reevaluate and to come back stronger with better reasoning. And so there's that opportunity to come back stronger the second time or the third time. Failure is not fatal, no matter how hard it may be to know that failure simply means that you get another shot to try again. And those, again, seem simplistic, but let's talk about people who have failed not once, not twice, but people who have failed repeatedly. So I have here 21 famous failures who refused to give up. Let's talk about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was thought to actually be disabled in school, mentally disabled, and he was not considered a successful student, but he went on to, of course, be internationally famous for his accomplishments. Beyonce has a network of $500 million, but she had multiple failures and lack of success before she got there. Of course, you know that Bill Gates was a failure at college. He went to college and didn't finish. He is now worth $80 billion. He, at the age of 17, had a software company called Trafodata, which analyzed raw data, traffic data, and it failed. But he kept at it. Charlie Chaplin was one of the greatest comedic minds of all times, but he grew up in poverty in the United Kingdom. His father abandoned his mother when he was just 2 years old, and he was forced to live in a workhouse at the age of 7. When he was 9, his mother was permanently committed to an insane asylum, and yet he became one of the most famous comics ever. Dr. Sanders, Colonel Sanders from the Fried Chicken, he failed repeatedly at his recipes until he only had $105 to his name. And now he has, and 1,009 restaurants rejected him before offering to accept his recipe. Dr. Seuss was rejected 28 times. His first book, and I think I saw it on Mulberry Street, was rejected 28 separate times. And by 1991, the time of his death, he had sold 600 million copies in 20 different languages. Fred Astaire, Henry Ford, Jim Carrey, J.K. Rowling, some of you may recognize that name. She wrote Harry Potter. She was a single mother living on welfare, trying to support her daughter. It took her 7 years to write Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and when she finished, all 12 major publishing houses rejected the book. Katy Perry, it took her nearly 10 years of failure and hard work before she released the critically acclaimed song in 2008. Keanu Reeves and Robert Kiyosaki, who is famous for Rich Dad, Poor Dad books, financial literacy. At the age of 30, his company went bankrupt. His next company 3 years later went bankrupt, but he never gave up. Stephen King, Sylvester Stallone, by the way, he was rejected by 1,500 talent scouts over the years until Rocky. Matter of fact, he was forced to sell his dog for $25 to turn the lights back on when the electricity went off. Thomas Edison, he failed over 10,000 times. And Walt Disney, it took him many heartache to create Mickey Mouse. So the point here is we need to stop thinking of the word failure as a bad word and a bad thing to do. We need to get much better at helping our children understand how to be open to challenges. So let's talk about some steps. We have a short video that will help us with steps.
Growth mindset. You probably know what it is, or at least have heard of it by now. But just knowing about it is not going to do you any good unless you know how to practice it like a skill. So in this 2-minute drill, we're going to walk you through the 5 simple steps that you can learn how to practice and develop a growth mindset. Step 1. Learn how skills are developed through deliberate practice. This is going to open your mind to a whole set of new possibilities because you're going to have an appreciation for how skills are actually developed. Step 2. Approach a situation today with the mindset of getting better versus looking good. Yep, sorry about this. This is going to require you to practice the V word, vulnerability. Step 3. Go all in on a task today. This step requires you to give your full attention and effort to the task at hand because it raises your awareness of what your potential actually can be. Step 4. Accept the challenge today with a loose grip mindset. This means that you detach yourself from the outcome so that you can be fully involved in the moment and enjoy the process. In step 5, create a mistake opportunity ritual. This is when you create any kind of physical gesture where you wipe off the mistake and then put your focus into the opportunity that's ahead of you. This is a great reminder that when you're pushing yourself just beyond your comfort zone and making mistakes, you know you're moving in the right direction. So there you go. That's the 5 simple steps that you can begin to practice now to develop your growth mindset. Hope you enjoyed this 2-minute drill. For more videos like this, check us out at flowtrainingdevelopment.com. Oh, and always remember, if you're not training, you're not gaining.
Okay, so let's go over those 5 steps again. Learn how skills are developed through deliberate practice. What that means is that if we want to get better at soccer, for example, or let's say that our child, there's a certain part of what the coach wants him to do while playing soccer that your child's not very good at. Deliberate practice means coming up with a plan. When are we going to practice that outside of the coach's practices? Deliberate practice means doing extra. So you come up with a plan, with your son or daughter and say, hey, how can we get better at this skill area outside of your regular practice? Because your regular practice evidently is not enough. And so what do we do differently? The next one is get better. You have to get that mindset of getting better versus looking good. And what that means is you have to become vulnerable. You have to allow yourself to be vulnerable and let people see you make mistakes if that happens. So getting better versus looking good. The third one, go all in on the task today. So just give it all your attention. Put your phone down, put your device down. If you have to do some kind of practice on something, go in with that complete presence. And then the next one, accept challenges with a loose grip mindset. Again, what that means is don't go in there to succeed. You accept the challenge to do the work with your best effort, no matter what the outcome is. Because you have that mindset, you will have the learning mindset of accepting whatever outcome happens so that you can do better next time. And then the last one, create a mistake opportunity ritual, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. So let's say, and we'll do kids, but let's say that we want our kids to, I'll use soccer again. We're going to ask our child to do something that we already know they have trouble doing, but we're creating that opportunity to not be good at it until he or she is good at it. But helping your child have that mindset when they go in is the key piece, that you and he or she talk together about the skill set that we're going to go practice, whether it's karate, chess, our homework. Maybe there's certain homework that comes home and your child feels a little beat down by it because he or she's not been very successful at it. And so now we say, well, let's approach it in a different way. Okay, let's see if we can do this and have you approach it with the thought of, I'm going to go in there, do my very best so that the teacher can see what I can do. And if there's an area that I'm not good at, my teacher will help me know and help me know how to learn that skill so I'm better at it. So there's a plan of action. There's not a giving up. Fixed mindset brains give up. Growth mindsets do not. And the last piece is a chart that I have for you. And it's a way of being able to answer kids who come home and say, this is too hard. Well, then you might say, well, it might take some time and effort. Let's turn your brain to think that it may take some time and effort. Or, I can't do French. How about you tell your brain you're going to train your brain in French? I give up. Well, that's just not an acceptable approach, son, daughter. What do we need to think differently? How do we train our brain differently? That statement, I give up, is not acceptable in our home because we have challengers in our home. We have growth minders in our home. So it's going to take a little bit of work on your part to train yourself to turn those negative statements into positive brain acceptances. But I think that you will find it will come more easily over time, and all of you will benefit from being in a growth mindset environment. So we have come, again, very quickly to the end of our podcast. I hope that you will use these videos and the information to not only work with your own children, but to share the information. Everybody needs to understand that they can continue growing their brain no matter what age and be better for it. So until next time, thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ask Dr. Be Good show. For more information on Legacy Preparatory Charter Schools, visit our website, legacypca.com, or call 469-249-1099. And remember to like us on Facebook, where we stream live weekly Tuesdays at 3 p.m.